This is Moving Soulward, the podcast about growing a business at the intersection of strategy, spirituality, and self-care. We're your hosts, Katie McLaughlin, your Be Good guide, and
Maria Spiralis, the lunar lawyer. We love a good inspirational story, but we're not interested in just profits or bottom lines. Though don't get us wrong, those things are important.
in Moving Soulward, expect to hear conversations with entrepreneurs who are at all different stages of building a business, with two important things in common. Success means something different to each of them, and you don't have to sell your soul to get what you want.
Prioritizing stillness, systems, energies, and service are all valuable and necessary parts of mindful entrepreneurship. Now grab your favorite card deck, a warm mug, spark up a candle, and listen in. Welcome back to Moving Soulward. Today we are here with Megan Munsell, and Megan is a CPA and the founder of Abundantia Advisory. Her mission is to help female founders and minority-led businesses build wealth, make a difference, and create lasting legacies. With a mix of sass, heart, tarot, and data-driven strategies, she helps clients decode finance, harness their numbers, and achieve their most ambitious dreams.
In this episode, we talk about the difference between a CPA and a tax preparer, Megan's human-centered approach to a traditional male-dominated industry, why you need a judgment-free professional when it comes to talking finances, and write-off tricks you might not know about.
Megan, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Maria and Katie.
We are so excited to have you, and we know you very well at this point, but for the audience, can you give us a little intro of yourself and a brief description of what you do?
Yes, I am a certified public accountant and I help people understand their money. And I've taken kind of this tired old way of doing things, turned it on its head, and made finances accessible for women and business owners who not only want to just have their taxes prepared, but then also truly understand their money at a deeper level.
Yeah, I know a little bit about tired old ways of doing things and doing things a little bit different. Actually, this is important to say that I manifested Megan because last fall slash late fall, I thought, I wish there was a CPA who was like a little bit woo, who worked with online business owners where we could be best friends and commiserate about this world of, being in a male dominated profession. And here you are.
Yeah, there's an interesting story behind how I found you. I had a gut feeling. I got a mailer from the Tennessee Society of CPAs, a Women in Leadership conference. I was building my firm. I was still employed, but I got my company to send me to that leadership conference. And I met Rosa, who is a keynote speaker in Nashville. And I started following her and talking to her because she was like the only woo person in the room. And then I found Maria and I was like, this is so cool. She's the Harry Potter references and the magic. I was like, this is so cool. I got to meet her. So I reached out.
Yes, we love Rosa too. Rosa will also be at Soulward Summit, but we'll get there. We'll get to Soulward Summit. So, okay. So we talked about, you kind of gave us the description of what you do, but I'm curious if you can give people a rundown of the difference between CPA, CFO, and maybe financial advisor and how those things are different.
Okay, that's a really great question. A certified public accountant is somebody who has essentially a master's degree in accounting, 150 hours of college credit. That generally is your bachelor's and your master's degree. The states are very specific on what courses you take. And then you have to take a 4-part exam that's incredibly difficult. Maria and I could probably argue back and forth, which is harder, the CPA exam or the bar exam, but it's a very hard exam. But not all CPAs do taxes. And I think that that's where everything kind of gets turned a little sideways. CPAs can do a lot of different things, corporate reporting and things of that nature. So a CPA is just somebody who studied accounting, who's licensed by their state to provide those services. You do not have to be licensed to prepare taxes. And that is, I wish that accounting and tax was regulated more like the law was, because anybody can say that they're a tax strategist or a tax preparer. And if they're not an attorney, a CPA, or an enrolled agent, there's no guarantee that you're getting a quality service. Not to say somebody couldn't, but those are the only three types of professionals that are regulated. Now, a CFO, fractional CFO, has been popularized in the last few years. Essentially, what I'm doing for businesses as a fractional CFO is I'm not just categorizing their transactions like a bookkeeper does. I'm modeling their data so that they can really make informed decisions based on where they're going in their business. For every business owner, this could look very different. I have a business owner where I'm tracking her business valuation, like an estimate of what her business could sell for, because she's an investor. And then there's other businesses where they have strategic partnerships where we're comparing the results of different strategic partnerships to see which are the most profitable for that business. And so it really, really is a high touch service that's reserved more for high multi six into seven figure entrepreneurs and above. And then financial planners are the people that you go to who tell you how much you need to save for retirement, what type of investments to make. I'm not a certified financial planner. I work alongside a great one here in Memphis if you need a or I work with whoever you have chosen as your certified financial planner. I can help them make sure that you're putting the correct amount in and that what they advise you, you can actually put in because there are some tax implications and tax rules that they don't always know. And so the CPA and the certified financial planner work together to make sure that that's kind of aligned.
Yeah, that's
So would
been
it be
something that's been
accurate?
really interesting personally that I've dealt with. It's always like when you're like, I don't really know what I need. And you're talking to a CPA, and then they're like, well, you have to ask your financial advisor. And the financial advisor's like, that I don't know the law. Like, you have to ask your CPA, and it's like the bouncing back and forth. And so I think like really drawing that line and understanding is like very important, just understanding your money in general. And then your approach specifically around like, I will tell you about these different, like, it's the awareness. You create a lot of awareness of different
Mhm.
investment strategies, like what's possible based on what you could possibly, what are limits that you could contribute, but you're then not necessarily being like, this is how you're going to invest. But it's that aware, it's like the gateway to then being like, oh, if I want to learn more about how to invest, then maybe I'll engage with a financial advisor.
Yes, and really and truly, like the financial advisor, their role is to take your risk tolerance and like your projected retirement and really make sure that what you're putting back is managed effectively. So it's a very different function, but there are income limits. For example, if you're an S corporation, that's very popular right now. People want to pay the reasonable comp as low as possible to save on taxes. But what they don't realize is depending on what type of retirement planning you're doing, it can significantly lower what you're able to save. So that's what gets really, really interesting. And that's why, especially when I'm a CFO, I'm kind of quarterbacking with their legal strategists, their financial planners, and then other professionals in the finance world, so that everybody's kind of on the same page.
Yeah. So it sounds like with CFO, there's a big piece, a big piece of it is strategy and it goes beyond tax.
Correct. It's the business strategy. It's we look at estate planning and the estate planning attorneys will have to get involved with that. They don't engage me to do their taxes because they have a relationship with a family CPA they've used for years, but they still send me the return before they sign it and say, "Hey, can you have a look at this? Does this match what we sent them for the business? I have some questions I'm more comfortable asking you." And I just go over that with them and then they can sign their return. So it's very customized. That's the thing to remember. It's the CFO is very customized.
So what's your setup in terms of how you deliver these services to your clients? Give us a picture.
So I'm a law firm, and believe it or not, I have more clients outside my home state than I do home state. I'm working on that. I built in secret, like the Scorpio moon in there. I was employed up until about March timeframe. And so I built a business using social media. So I have clients in multiple states. And so it's delivered virtually in general. Businesses have QuickBooks, and I have access to that. And then I have other software that I've invested in that helps me with the advisory services, really to build out customized cash flow modeling, customized budgets, annual operating plans on the business strategy side. And then on the tax side, the different tax advisory and kind of pulling the different knobs and giving them different options to save on taxes. And so every month we come together. If they have a question, we can address their question. If not, I go over their results, talk about their strategy, make suggestions, gently nudge if I see a trend that's not going to serve them in the long term. But everybody has their free will and they can, continue on that path if they so choose. But I'm there to kind of forewarn them the good and bad consequences of different actions.
That's amazing. So you obviously like know so much about tax law, taxes, financials, all of that. I mean, you probably just dropped like 6 or 7 words that many people on this podcast are like, I don't even know what that is. So before we dive
Sorry.
into more about what you're doing, we want to do a little lightning round of like getting to know who you are, but outside of the finances. So we'll do a little lightning round. First question, what is your favorite warm beverage?
Ooh, my favorite warm beverage would be hot cocoa.
I love a good hot cocoa. Mar Controversial question, marshmallows or no marshmallows?
Marshmallows.
I like a good whipped
I
cream,
agree.
but I understand the appeal of marshmallows. What is a current Netflix or podcast that you are binging? What have you been binging lately?
We have been binging the Big F and Life podcast. There's a life coach, Maddie Cosine, and she just will record podcast episodes like freestyle of her thoughts in her car. And that's just been really interesting. When I drive to Nashville for networking, it's a 3-hour one each way. And so it feels like I'm in the car listening to a friend. And so that's kind of what I've binged in the last week.
I love that. You get like a
And then
little
there's
co-pilot.
Yeah, and then there's nerdy ones. I listened to the Directed IRA podcast while I was doing my 10-mile run this week because I'm self-directing my IRA and I have a lot of questions about it. And so I listened to that podcast. It's for non-professionals, but like there's some very fundamental things that it's like, just tell me in plain English
Yeah.
what all this means. And so that was another one, but I don't know that everybody would love listening to that one. Might
I
be
love
good
that. I
late
love a
night listen.
nerdy finance podcast. What about the last book that you read that you couldn't put down?
Oh, it's been a minute since I read a good fiction book just because I'm on a screen so much. I would have to say, I can't remember what the name of it is. I would have to go to my room and get it. The last one that I can remember the name of the book is Before We Were Yours, and it was the story based on a true story in Memphis. It happened in Memphis. There was a lady, in the early part of the 1900s that ran a adoption agency and essentially stole children from poor people and sold them to the rich. And it's like
Wow.
a true story, and it happened in Memphis. And I think the actual novel is fiction, but it's based on that true story.
Oh my God, that's wild. I love more like documentaries or like real life based stories. So that sounds like something I would be interested in for
Yeah, and
sure.
I live in Memphis, so I think it was on a table of local history fiction book thing at a local bookstore, and that's where I found it.
Cool. What about your favorite self-care or spiritual hygiene ritual?
I love me a good card pull, doing a daily card pull, or if I'm able to like go out and go to another practitioner, I love me a good reading. I
Love
love
that.
me a good reading. Okay,
Do
Katie,
you have a favorite deck that
where are
you've
your
been pulling
boundaries
from
today,
lately?
Katie? What?
Do you have a favorite deck that you've been pulling from lately?
Yeah, I have it right here. It is the Runes for Modern Life.
Ooh, I
And
haven't seen that one.
yeah, and it's got, I mean, the cards are really pretty.
I've been wanting to learn about runes.
I have
It's a
some,
card.
and I
I'm
like
not
have
learning.
used them very sparingly. I'm not very well versed in the tool, but
Well, what's really interesting is when I was a child and I was, raised in a fundamental Christian household, I used to throw charms and not even know that was like, it was just something that I would do. Like, should I do this? Yes or no? And I would have my little trinkets and I'd either catch them or throw them down. And like, it was a thing. And I was never trained in it. And I think that's really interesting. And it makes me wonder if I need to do a past life reading.
yeah, it's like we've been talking on another episode of this podcast. I think it was with Marguerite, and we were talking about this great remembering. You find yourself doing things now, or you were doing them as a child, you find yourself drawn to things that you're doing now, and you're like, I don't know where, no one taught me this. I don't know where it came from, but I'm like doing this thing that I didn't even know like how connected it was. So I think that's really fascinating. How do you get most of your clients?
I get most of my clients right now through social media. I started with TikTok in early 2023, and then later on got into Instagram later that year. Well, it was last year. So most of my clients have come to me off of TikTok or referrals from clients who have come off of TikTok. And then more recently, I've started networking in Nashville and in my hometown, like in person, and that's starting to pay off as well. So I got one local client off of Threads and was able to connect them to another industry leader in their industry, and like that's going to lead to a really big strategic partnership that's going to probably double his business. So the power of personal networking is very strong for professional services, but social media is also very strong as well.
Love that. What's one thing that you wish you knew before you started this business?
Well, let me I wish I knew which investments, and when I say investments, I'm talking about coaching containers and things of that nature would pay off and which ones would not, because I have overspent on 4 containers and I've also spent very good money in different rooms.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I think
Okay.
there's a lot in there that we could probably have a whole podcast episode about. Like, how do you find like teachers or practitioners or coaches that you can trust that you're going to get the value? Like, what can you use to evaluate like that your investment is worth it? So I feel like
You
that's a
should
whole other
do a
episode.
podcast on horror stories of bad coaching.
That could be a series. That could be
Oh,
a series alive.
laughs in legal exposure. Like that's Maria's laughter was kind of nervous. She's like, I know.
Really quickly, I wanted to hop in here and tell you something that you probably already know if you're listening to this podcast, but just in case you don't, Katie and I are hosting the first annual Soulward Summit Conference. This is a business conference for mindful leaders, for mindful achievers, for business owners who know that they should listen to their intuition, who know they shouldn't get stuck in hustle culture mode, but sometimes they do, and you want to really incorporate your intrinsic gifts, your own authenticity into your business and your brand and take it to the next iteration of your dream. And so if you're interested, head to soulwordsummit.com and you'll get all of the details there on tickets and ticket options. We hope to see you there. And P.S., we are releasing some juicy Black Friday deals, so make sure and get on our email list before Black Friday and you can get in on those too.
Well, because my mind was actually thinking about the fact that, if you're looking for a restaurant, every restaurant has a Google page and Google reviews. But for programs and for coaches, I mean, they've got testimonials. Don't trust testimonials.
Yeah.
No,
Go on and on about custom. I mean, so how do you truly know unless you know someone who's gone through the program and has had good results and says, hey, like I can vouch for this. It's very good.
but there's also the bad one that I'm thinking of, and this was before we met, Maria. You might know, I think you know which one it is because I had you review a couple things on it, but
I
they
remember.
had a clause in there where you can't talk negative about them and they will bully based on that. So you are not going to get a true, like, somebody's not going to come out and just bad mouth
Yeah.
or tell
That's a
about their
red flag.
experience.
Talk about a red
That's
flag
not
in a
enforceable
contract.
either.
Well, I know, but you do, but who wants to go through that? I've
Yeah.
been through enough things in my 40 years of life to know that just because you can't enforce something or just because a suit isn't going to be successful doesn't mean somebody can't file it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Last
So,
lightning round question. What's the best life advice you've ever received?
ooh, the best life advice that I have ever received is probably when my parents told me that once you're 18, you can do what you want. And kind of let me explain that. It's kind of like I own all of my mistakes because it was like before 18, you have to do what we say. And that makes sense to me. It made sense to me logically. I'm like, okay, they're paying my bills. I have to do what they say. If they're paying for my college, which they only paid for my first year, I have to do what they say. And so, really taking ownership of my life and making my own decisions and my own mistakes, there's nothing bad about that. And that's what's made me who I am today.
I love that. That's a good one. Owning your
Yeah.
journey.
Yeah.
Well, along the same lines of turning 18 and making your own decisions, tell us about your journey because I know, like you said, you were in the corporate setting and now you're a business owner. So tell us about the journey from that or even before that to like the path that you went on to become who
I
you are
woke up
now.
one morning and I said, I want to be a CPA. No. No, actually, I actually did want to become an accountant from a very young age. My mother was an entrepreneur and she was always super stressed about the fine. I didn't understand what it was because I just knew that there were lots of receipts and lots of tears. And then we go to this man's office and he would say, you have to write this check. And she'd be very upset. But then I also knew that this man only worked 4 months out of the year. And that sounded really awesome to me. And so, like, when I was a kid, and so I was very interested in doing whatever this CPA thing was. And so I went to college for international business, quickly changed my major to accounting just because it seemed like it'd be easier to find a job in accounting. And that was kind of why I got into it, was to be able to understand money, be able to help my mother with her business, which she ended up closing down. Had she had somebody like me in her corner while she was building her business, maybe not as her daughter, but as her advisor, I think she would have had a sellable asset that she could have divested of and had a very much different retirement than the retirement that she's having now. And so that's kind of the thing that I've always thought about. And, getting closer to the age of 40, I think women kind of go through like a reawakening. And it's like, what am I doing? I'm in this corporate setting. I'm burnout. It doesn't matter what I do, I can be let go tomorrow. Why not make a difference in the lives of other small business owners and help them build their dream? And so through college and all of that, through my career path, that's kind of what led me here. Wouldn't change anything because all of these experiences are things that I draw on when I'm advising my clients. I've seen a lot more than the average CPA because I've worked in multi-billion-dollar organizations. I've been a real estate investor with a multi-seven-figure portfolio. I've done tax planning on the side and really read about it because it's something that interests me. And so all these unique things just kind of come together.
Well, that's a hell of a why. I think that's a really good why. I'm curious who your dream client is. Describe your dream client to us.
My dream client, somebody who wants to build a legacy and become the business that we wish these other corporations would be. Someplace where employees are treated fairly, where it's insanely profitable. You can have this richly abundant lifestyle, but yet not make people feel less than, not just extract all their knowledge from them, make people feel proud to be something part of something bigger again. And so not just somebody who's like, I want to be as rich as possible. Yeah, sure. Okay. But also the impact that you're making along the way. Doesn't matter if you're a billionaire, you can still be a billionaire and do a lot of insanely good things for the world. But just somebody who wants to kind of start to shift the narrative, be good to their employees, be good to their community, and really provide a really good product or service.
Yeah, there's a lot of like, we talk a lot about purpose-driven entrepreneurs, but like there's a lot of integrity. You're looking for people who are not chasing just the ROI, but or the ROI isn't just money and success. It's impacting their community, impacting individuals, impacting consciousness, which I think is really amazing. I mean, that's why I love working with you, and we're working on it. We're working on building an empire that you can manage all the money is a very hard topic for people, for a lot of people. And one of your tenets of your business is being a judgment-free zone for your clients. So what does that look like and why is that important to you?
It judgment free, you gotta own your journey and you gotta own like where you're at in your finances and all of that. And I'm not anyone to judge because I've made plenty of financial mistakes. In fact, I was just interviewed yesterday on a whim by the Washington Post because I posted about how I didn't invest in crypto. And had I invested when my ex-husband wanted me to invest, we would add $267 million. So everybody makes mistakes. And I'm not here to tell you, are those mistakes good or bad? I'm not here to tell you, are your wins good or bad? I'm just here to tell you what you need to do to stay in compliance, to keep more of it, and to make sure that the investments that you're making, whether they're in employees, whether they're in coaching containers, whether they're in something else, are serving you and your goals, not just for money, but for lifestyle as well.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, and my favorite part of working with you is that I am not at all shy about dropping crazy particular questions in our group program chat, some of which are like, how do I categorize my crystal purchases when I'm using some with clients and some are for giveaways? Like, and Megan doesn't bat an eye about that. She's like, okay, well, is it average? Like, is this marketing related? Is this so
Slap
I
your
love that
label
I
on it, girlfriend, and call it a marketing expense.
exactly, exactly. So there's just like this energy of like working with you that is creating that space of like I know that you are supportive of me growing my business and that I can, let it fly and show all the skeletons and feel safe to do so, which
Very
is
organized. Katie, you are very organized.
doesn't
Like
mean I don't
that.
have skeletons. I am bougie. I love a luxury.
There's no big Taurus influence there.
No, actually, I have like no Taurus in my chart, but there's other reasons for that. One thing I wanted to talk to you about was it's so difficult to choose this path. I mean, you talked a lot about why you're on this path and what this means to you, but building something from the ground up is not easy. So, what's your biggest business challenge that you're working through right now or this year that's like where it represents like where you're at and what you're working through?
Well, knowing when to hire has been my biggest thing, just because I went from a very highly paid corporate salary to where I am now. And I do have help. I do have some contractors. I do have somebody who does all the bookkeeping for me. but knowing when I can bring on another accountant at a good rate of pay without, setting me back from my financial goals. That's the biggest thing. And I think I probably overcomplicate it more than most because I am so much in the financials all the time with my clients, and I kind of see what it looks like when things start to go sideways with that. So that's probably the biggest challenge. I do have help, but knowing when to bring on another pretty decently paid accountant.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like when you can scale and yeah, you're collecting so much data with the clients that you work with. I mean, you can see a lot of different scenarios where like hiring worked out and hiring did not work out. So I imagine that's
Yeah.
tough to navigate. You're seeing a lot of decision making in a lot of different ways and how to like incorporate your own voice and clarity into that has got to be
Do I
challenging.
do I get somebody local here so that I can get an office and have FaceTime with them? Do I find what I think is the cream of the crop no matter where they are in the US? And then you have a remote employee. Like there's so many decisions. But by next year at this time, I'll have one or two of those employees.
It's amazing.
I think what you described is something too that so many of us struggle with because we hear, or at least I hear, people talk about this zone of genius. You should only be doing the things that are within your zone of genius, and you should outsource everything else. And I've gotten into trouble listening to that advice and maybe over investing or investing too soon in outside help, and then the numbers don't make sense. So I think you
Yeah.
articulated something that's a common struggle.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I have the smaller group program where the business owners doing their own bookkeeping, and then they're able to ask questions, and they're getting monthly seminars about a particular topic, and they have access to me in the firm, because I know that if you're under about let's say 70 to 100,000 of net profit, it doesn't make sense financially to bring on an accountant for 795 a month. And that's kind of my base compliance rate. That's not the fractional CFO. That's just somebody I'm doing their categorization for. Yes, I'm giving them advice, but we're not doing everything as customized. That's a big investment when you're at that. And what happens is these type of business owners end up investing in the affordable services, and they're doing what looks like the responsible thing, but I cannot tell you how many of those sets of books that I've had to clean up, and the mistakes have been very costly, you know? So, yeah, and you have to have your sales engine set up, right? So you have to be able to bring in enough revenue on a consistent basis to support that decision. I can tell you what the number is that you need to hit, but I'm not a marketer. I can't guarantee that you're going to hit those numbers. You have to do that. So that's kind of the different dials that you turn on a business. So if you don't have that big sales funnel coming down, or a business structured like mine that's on monthly programs, that's going to be very hard if you're just doing ad hoc projects here and there. It becomes
Mhm.
very challenging.
Mhm.
A
Is there
$50,000 month followed by a $10,000 month followed by a $2,000 month followed by an $80,000 month, and that all
it's
that.
exhausting. Is there so myself, I will notice with my clients, like this was a very trademark heavy month. This month, everyone is fighting. Is there a common thread that you're seeing with your clients, or do you see cycles or waves in your clients and working with your clients? Something that you're seeing right now, a lot of.
Well, it's going to be based on tax season. So, really and truly, those who know that October through December is tax season. And then there's tax filing season from January to April, because there's not much we can do if you don't have it in place by December. There are some options with different types of going back to the retirement account examples, there are some things you can do after the fact, but it's limited, right? So right now, the really savvy people are reaching out for tax advising, and a lot of people who want to take it seriously going into 2025 are coming in for cleanups and things of that nature. So right now, it's very heavily tax focused, and then nobody's going to want to talk about taxes after April. And so then it will become, can I afford to go on vacation? You know, more business and lifestyle strategy.
Can you share, confidentially, of course, minding all of that, what sticks out to you as a transformational experience that one of your clients or customers had while you were working with them and kind of being that strategic partner and then giving them that support?
Let me think.
Like a big mistake they were making in terms of a write-off or
There's a couple different things, and this goes back to being careful of who you're hiring for your bookkeeping. I had two different clients, but one of them is an attorney who has IOLTA accounting, and she was paying somebody specifically for bookkeeping for the IOLTA, so that her IOLTA was staying in balance. And when I came on board, it very much was not balanced. And there was a lot of cleanup I had to do. A lot of her work for the past several months I had to undo and redo. And just the peace of mind that that business owner now has, that that's being looked at every month and that's being taken care of. If I see something isn't lining up perfectly, I have a paralegal in her firm that I can talk to about that, and it's being handled. And then also the other thing that I do for that particular client is model out what her revenue could look like if she had different types of engagements, fixed contracts versus, hourly working. If she brought on another attorney and they build out a certain percentage, how would that look? Being able to model that out for her has been incredibly helpful as well. I had another client that owned two different businesses in two different industries. She's an investor. She was paying a bookkeeper locally, and when she came aboard, nothing had been done in one company since like April, May, maybe March. I can't remember, but we were in late November when she onboarded. So, and she had been paying them. So just cleaning that up, being very transparent, telling them exactly what they need to do. That's all. Like that gives them, it clears out a lot of worry and headspace.
Yeah, I think can be that inherent fear, like, am I doing something that the IRS is going to come after me for or not? And so having someone that is like taking care of you, okay, I am doing this correct, is amazing. So one of the things I wanted to talk about, you are speaking at Soul Word Summit on a panel with Maria, which we're so excited about. And so I thought it'd be cool as an example of what you do with tax strategy or like advice that you would give to a client, and some of the things that you cover in the group program. Can you give us a few sentences or just a little bit on how attendees can write off their ticket and their travel if they're out of state? Like what are the opportunities to do write-offs if you're attending a conference like Soul Word Summit for your business?
So if you're in the business, that means you're not just thinking about starting the business. You may start the business. You're coming with somebody who has a business. If you are a business owner who's coming to Soulward with the intention of learning how to be a better entrepreneur, sharing your products, services, networking with like-minded entrepreneurs, that is a deductible expense. And you can deduct the travel there. I'll be deducting mileage from Memphis to Nashville because I don't write off the full cost of my car. I do standard mileage deduction. If you're flying in from Florida, your plane tickets, and then the hotel room that you stay in, that's deductible, as well as any meals that you have, any ride shares that you do while you're there. Now, entertainment is not deductible. So if you go get a massage or you go play putt-putt with some friends, I don't know if that's a thing in Nashville.
honky tonks.
Yeah. Well, the honky tonk, like the beers and stuff, I would say are deductible. But like if you go to a line dancing class, that's not deductible. meals are 50% deductible. So,
Can you talk
um,
about travel meals versus, isn't there a difference, right? Travel meals versus,
well, it's the travel meals and meals in general are 50% deductible. Think about your big employer's celebratory pizza party. That's 100% deductible. But travel, networking, business meals, those are all 50%. So,
Amazing. When it comes to thinking about write-offs like that, what are some of the most common mistakes that people make? Which I know you have so many webinars and you're building a course around this and stuff, so I want to tease that a little bit. But give us some juicy like TikTok trends that are just absolutely terrible advice or
I
mistakes
just
people make.
I just want to scream every time I hear you have to have an LLC in order to deduct something. That is absolutely not true. I want to cry whenever they say, if you pay for it out of your personal account, it's not deductible. That's not true either. Just keep good records. Let's try to not commingle. That's not great, but you're not going to lose the deduction. So thinking things are not deductible is really ironically the biggest thing, because I don't see a lot of people trying to get away with lavish things in the sphere that I am, because truly lavish, you have to be at a totally other level, a different level. Like, you know, somebody that's pulling $300,000 of profit is not going to own a private jet and, be trying to pull a fast one, although, there are ways that you can buy and write off a jet too. That's totally legit. So just not knowing what is deductible. If you have an Apple Watch and you use it to stay in touch with your clients and keep your schedule, deductible. Like things like that, people don't realize.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's so much. I mean, I've learned so much being in your group program around things that I had never thought about deducting before, and like the specific ways to maximize deductions during travel and things like that. So that makes sense that it's like people just don't know what they don't know, and you're really putting that trust in whoever you're working with to tell you that. But there's stuff that you have to do on, the owner side. Like if I have everything that I'm running on my business card or my business credit card going through that bank account, and I don't know that I have a trip coming up and that I'm going to be doing some business activity down there. If I just put that all on my personal card and I never let my accountant know that that was business related, or my CPA know that business related, like I would never get that deductible. So I think there's like definitely the education component that you bring is really important, and really like that helps build that trust of like, okay, like she knows what she's doing. She knows what she needs to give me a heads up on so that I can then be in a better place financially.
All of these courses that you buy that you're trying to learn how to do social media, you're wanting, your branding by astrology, all of those things are going to be deductible as training. I would
Mhm.
call them training, not education. Education's like when you go to school, and that's totally different. So those kinds of things are deductible, your accounting fees, etc. And then just when you have a relationship with a tax preparer, have a firm understanding of what you're getting from them. Somebody can come to me and just get their return prepared. I'm completely okay with that. I'm expanding that service this year. But I'm be very transparent. I'm doing the return. If you want advisory, that's an additional service. And I do have very affordable options. But, if you want to have a question through the year and you haven't purchased an advisory package, you are going to get an invoice for my time. And I think that's where a lot of the relationship breaks down between traditional CPAs and their clients, is there's not that very clear communication on the front end, just that radical honesty.
Yeah,
So
100%. So where can people find more of what you do? And then what's something specifically you've got going on that you want our listeners to know about? Black Friday.
Katie and I work together. And so yeah, she's telling me she's coaching me. So that you can find more of me on Instagram at Megan Munsell, and on TikTok at it's Megan Munsell. And so that's two places. And then my website, of course, is www.myabundantia.com. I'm sure it'll be in the show notes. I'm really excited about Black Friday. Friday, I'm putting together a bookkeeping for tax prep course for the business owner who isn't ready for the group program. My group program is $300 a month and includes your tax prep plus access to me for advisory type questions in a group setting. If you're not ready for that, there'll be that bookkeeping for tax prep course where you can learn some basics about what's deductible, but it's not going to have all the tea. There'll be a separate course for that, but you'll have a way to keep up with your income and expenses, whether you're going to use a spreadsheet, QuickBooks, or Xero. So if you're like, I don't know what to pick, there's a quiz in there that'll help you kind of see where you're at and know, okay, I can use the spreadsheet that's included, or I need to take this QuickBooks or Xero guide and pick one of those. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, that's going to be great. I have plenty of coaching clients that I'm going to be sending your way, as you know. Okay, last question. Who else would you recommend that we interview for this podcast?
That's a really good one because we all are in a very similar circle in Nashville. So I'm fairly certain that like everybody in Nashville that I would recommend, you guys are like, I already got them lined up. I would interview Raven Petty from Raven and Grace. Jennifer Grace is a life coach that's pretty popular in Nashville. She owns a publishing company, and Raven Petty is her editor, and she's an amazing person, and I absolutely love her.
That's a good one. We didn't have her on the list, so
Yes, we do.
you did it.
That's actually, I'm like, she's quiet, and I love her, and I just talked to her yesterday, so it's on my mind.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Megan. It's been great talking to you about all of this, and anyone who needs some money mindset or CPA help, check her out.
Thanks, Megan.
Woo friendly. If you don't want to meet during Mercury retrograde, I'm not going to judge you. Not going to judge.
We hope you loved that conversation. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, review this episode. We appreciate it so much, and we will see you next time.